Well, hello there. Good evening, and welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I'm the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and other forms of rock music. Okay, so we're here at the series video for my look back at rock greats who thrilled us but have since passed on. This is a series of videos that start in 1964 and will go all the way up to 2022. We are today at episode 7, which is 1970. A couple of legendary rock musicians here, very influential people, both of them. And there was quite a bit of information out there on them. I didn't need to look up as much on these two as I've had to in the other past because I've already know a lot about them, especially the first guy who I went through an error. I want to say it was probably in the end of my high school until maybe I was in my mid-20s where I listened to quite a bit of his stuff, and he had a fairly large impact on me. And of course, where the two greats we're talking about today are Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, two more members of the 27 Club. Okay, so we're going to start with James Marshall Hendrix today, born John Allen Hendrix. Um, anyways, I'm going to need my glasses for this because there's quite a bit of information I want to relay so that people are aware. He was born on November 27th, 1942 in Seattle, Washington. So one of those Seattle rockers, right? A little earlier than most of them, but still a Seattle rocker. Anyways, he died September the 18th in 1970 in Dublin, England. And I just want to make a note here. Actually, we'll do that after. Okay, so anyways, his music genre that he was in was he actually was very good at combining like blues, jazz with rock and soul. He combined those elements to make his own sound, which was, to me, very unique and very influential. Um, okay, he was basically a vocalist and a guitarist, but known mostly for his guitar ability, which was a virtuoso. He was a one of a kind guitar player, probably the most impactful guitar player that's ever actually played in rock music. Had a huge impact on a lot of people, huge impact on a lot of people who were already having a large impact on other people. um, so his years of active, he was short. He only had a short period of activity, which was between 1963 and 70, before he was gone. Just gone like that. It's a sad thing, right? Really. Um, Okay, so notably, he redefined guitar at that point as anybody had known it. Nobody had heard anything like this guy. Not only was he an amazing guitar player instrumentally, but he was a virtuoso. He often invented stuff that nobody else was doing. The Who were breaking guitars on stage, but he wasn't just breaking guitars on stage. He was setting them on fire and doing all kinds of weird things with them, right? Just a very charismatic individual. One of the things I always liked about him is that he had a kind of, well, he had a psychedelic 60s style clothing, the whole image, the whole stage persona, the whole guitar, like doing all kinds of unbelievable things with his guitar on stage. He did that legendary thing that people know about where he went on stage with Cream and literally just blew Eric Clapton off the stage. Nothing against Eric Clapton. The guy's a great guitar player, but I mean, he knew it and everybody knew it that he was not in the same league with this guy, but that nobody was, you know. Now, I've heard people talk that, people have listened to him now think, oh, he wasn't that great. A lot of people are doing that. Yeah, but nobody was doing that when he did it, you know. People like the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, all loved this guy. They just couldn't believe what they were hearing. He just was doing things they never heard of before, and he was doing the things they did, but doing them better, you know. Okay, so what else can I tell you about this guy? I'm just looking at my notes briefly here. Like I said, he was one of these guys that kind of brought together the white hippie element and the black kind of um, revolutionary people. They brought them together, you know, doing the things that they wanted to hear, and like really putting this particular thing on the map. I think that he was very influential that way. A very flamboyant guy, of course. Like, you know, if you see any footage of him, he was like right out there doing stuff. Like a lot of the stuff that he did then, you know, really a lot of people have done since, so it's not as big of a deal. But back then it was a huge deal because nobody was doing that, like I said before. Again, admired by the Stones, by the Who, and by the Beatles. All of them have said things about him, you know, that, you know, just put him on the map. Okay, the group that he originally formed with, or actually he was originally started out with Little Richard, and I think, I'm going to note here, yeah, the Isley Brothers. He played guitar with them, and I remember reading something somewhere and actually seeing an interview, I think, with Little Richard about how he really had a problem with him because, you know, Little Richard's kind of out there too. He was kind of a flamboyant type of charismatic type of singer. And this guy was more than him. Like, it's just, they were competing too much on stage. So I think that's part of the reason why he moved on. But he was learning his craft from different people, you know. That's what he was doing. Then he went to England and just blew those people off the sock. Like, they just never seen anything like that before. The other thing, too, was... I did make a note of this somewhere, and I can't remember. Oh yeah, okay. So, anyways, they formed a band in Britain, gave him a bass player and a drummer, who were both British. Mitch Mitchell, of course, who's quite a very good drummer, and Noel Redding, another really good. Now, Noel was originally a guitar player, but obviously he wasn't going to be playing guitar in this band, so he played the bass. But he could sing as well. There's actually some tracks on their albums of him just him singing. A lot of people don't know that, but that's the truth. Noel Redding had a couple of songs that, I think there was the one, She's So Fine. I think that was the song that I remember him singing. So yeah, he sang a couple tracks with them. And they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in '92. All three are gone now, but that was the beginning of Jimi Hendrix with the Jimi Hendrix Experience. And they put out 3 albums: Are You Experienced, Axis Bold as Love, and Electric Ladyland. Top shelf albums, all 3 of them. I don't have the CD forms of Are You Experienced and Electric Ladyland. I have had them in the past as album form, but I only have them, now I only have Axis Bold as Love on the CD, which I like quite a bit and played quite a bit when I got it, and still play on occasion as well. Some really good stuff on here if you're interested in listening to his music, or you don't, maybe you've been on a different planet and don't know who he is. Anyways, his first hit, Hey Joe, off of Are You Experienced. He had a couple of other tracks on that album, I believe. Purple Haze was also on that album, and I can't remember what it was. It was one other one. Anyways, the album was number 2 behind only Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band. So if you're going to be second to the Beatles, that's not a bad place to be. What else can I tell you about him? Oh yeah, so part of the problem that Jimi Hendrix had was, this is not an uncommon problem for rock musicians, but he had this, like he was so shocking in the way he did things, his charisma and all the stuff I've already said, that that the crowd almost kind of wanted that, and he wanted to kind of progress. He wanted to go on to do other things, and he didn't want to stay with the type of music they were get him to play it. And I think this is part of the reason why the Jimi Hendrix Experience kind of was going by the wayside just around the time that he passed on, and he was into the band of gypsies. He wanted to do other things, but it was difficult for him to do that when people were kind of pushing him to be a certain way. And he also had problems with the record. Some of his recordings, he couldn't record anything else at one point because there was dispute over his music. So the only way actually he could record, he just couldn't collect any money. He wasn't making any money from it. So the only way he could make a living was by touring constantly, which he did, So right around the time that he was starting to overcome that and starting to move on from the music, like when he joined the band of Gypsies, he put that together. When he was just starting to make all this come together, he died. Tragedy, Recorded a ton of stuff, lots of stuff, which has since been released since he's passed on. Okay, so people really have asked me a bit about, talk a little bit more about what happened to him. Why did he die? Okay, so I've never tried to follow these aspects on any of the people too much, except for a little bit on Sam Cooke. But, people are interested in knowing about this guy. He was a legend. So he basically died of an overdose of barbiturates, not an uncommon, maybe not barbiturates in the sense, but drug overdose, not an uncommon thing for rock stars, You got to think about it. Yeah, some people will say, well, why would a guy who's having so much success and being on top of the world want to die? I don't know if it's necessarily they want to die, but it's a lot of pressure, and you're under the gun, and you're under the under the magnifying glass everywhere you go. And if you're not used to that, it's got to be very traumatic, and how do they deal with it? Well, a lot of people drink or do drugs. And when you drink or do drugs, arguably right or wrong, you're going to have times where you're going to overdo it. And, it doesn't happen to everybody, but a lot of people, Jimi Hendrix case, he overdid it, and he didn't get a second chance, so he's gone, right? The sad thing, really, for a guy who's just beginning to bud, I always wondered if he had lived till he was like a lot of rock musicians have lived into their 70s and 80s. If he'd lived that long, what kind of impact would he have had on music? I would have to say it would probably be enormous. He had an enormous impact in the 3 or 4 years that he actually was alive and performing and doing stuff. I can just imagine where he would have went, what he might have done. He was a musical innovator as well, so I'm sure at some point he would have been maybe producing or maybe inventing something, or he might have joined and become part of a super group somewhere. There was talk that he might join Emerson, Lake and Palmer at one point too, and for a lot of people they don't really see the fit there because of the style he played versus the style that Emerson, Lake and Palmer played. They don't see the fit, but a guy like Jimi Hendrix can do anything. In my opinion, he could have easily become a progressive rock star, and he would have. I don't know that he would have fit in with the LP. It would have been hard because he got Keith Emerson, who was kind of the center focal point. If you got a guitarist like Hendrix, he's not going to be second fiddle. It's not going to happen, right? So, just going to look. I just wanted to talk a little bit about his material that was post after he died. I can never say that word, so I don't even know why I always go that route. Anyways, after he died, they released a ton of stuff by him. A lot of it very good, as it can only be. I just think that this guy is just one of the greatest musicians of all time. And, some people, we all have our favorite guitar players and our favorite genre of music and stuff, but I would go as far to say is that as much as I love Steve Howe and Alex Lifeson and some of those other guitar players who I consider to be my favorites, I still think this guy may be the best of all time. He just had a style and an ability to get noises out of a guitar that, you know, back in the day people weren't being able to do. I mean, people can do it now because they have equipment and stuff that is set up to allow them to do it. But he didn't have any of that. He just knew how to do it. Anyways, so there you have it. Jimi Hendrix, legendary rocker, blues rhythm guitar player, rhythm and blues guitar player. Just a fantastic guy who could sing as well and produced a lot of really good music. So now we're going to go on to Janis Joplin. I don't know as much about Janis Joplin. I do know some things about her. I have liked her music in the past and listened to it. The biggest thing about Janis Joplin is not so much her music. I wasn't as huge a fan of the music she played as I was of Hendrix. And it was perhaps a type of music that I can only listen to a little bit. But I had a definite 100% interest in her vocals. Like, I think that she was one of the best female vocalists ever. Just a great voice and a strong voice and a powerful stage presence too. So anyways, let's do the vitals with her. I didn't write the years active. I just forgot it, so I'm going to pass on that part. But basically, she was a vocalist, is what she was, and a great one at that. Born on January 14th, 1943, in Port Arthur, Texas. Died October the 4th, 1970, in Los Angeles, California. Just a few short weeks after Jimi, she passed on. Wow. You wonder how anything could survive the loss of two people of that magnitude. But they did. Anyway, she did go to college. She went to a couple colleges, one a kind of a technology school and another one at University of Texas. She did abuse, and she left the college to pursue singing, but she was at that time even abusing alcohol and amphetamines. So that's where it started for her, was those two things. She was a vocalist for Big Brother and the Holding Company. That's where she started. That was the band she started in. And they released an album called, where did I write this now? I can't remember. I wrote it down here somewhere. Well, maybe it would help if I put these on, right? I forget sometimes. Yeah, the album was called Cheap Thrills, I think. Yeah. And which reached number one, and it also had this hit single, Another Piece of My Heart, which is a very famous song, and that ended up as number one of two number ones she had, that one, and later on she had another one called was it Me and Bobby McGee? Yeah, it was Me and Bobby McGee. Anyways, the voice, Another Piece of My Heart Now Baby, like that to me is a quintessential Janis Joplin voice. Like, just really kind of raunchy, harsh and whispery, but very powerful, you know. She had a great stage presence, often dragging people up on stage to dance and party with her while she was singing. I don't know. There may be some modern musicians that do this, but I don't recall anybody else doing this at all, you know. Certainly not the Beatles, that's for sure, because they were getting mobbed if they did that. But she just had this, she just take people by the hand out of the crowd, and the next thing you know, there'd be 40 or 50 people on stage dancing and singing with her and everything. She was a real charismatic individual. That's the one thing about her and Hendrix that I think is very similar. They had a great stage presence, very charismatic, very powerful at their abilities, right? And now her ability was vocals, but his was more guitar, but still a similar type of trend, right? Okay, so anyways, she broke up with that band, and then she formed the Cosmic Blues Band, which she performed. They broke up shortly after that. I think they performed at Woodstock. The other band, the other band originally performed with her at the Monterey Pop Festival, in which she blew the socks off everybody. Nobody had seen anything like that before. They were just blown away by her at that. And then she did the Woodstock Festival with the band that she formed, the Cosmic Blues Band, and shortly after that concert, I don't know, too much longer after that, they broke up because she became addicted to heroin at this point in time. So then, not too long after that, she got engaged to be married, and she did an album. I just want to make sure I get this right. This is when the Full Tilt Boogie Band. That was it. After she got engaged, she did the Full Tilt Boogie Band, and they were getting ready to release the Pearl album with me and Bobby McGee, and that's when she died. Same kind of thing as Hendrix. Just when things were starting to come together, they died, and she died of basically heroin. Heroin was the thing that killed her. Scary thing, heroin. Neil Young wrote that song, Seen the Needle and the Damage Done. And every time I hear that song or play that song or think of that song, it reminds me of Janis Joplin. It's the truth, right? Now, I can say this, that perhaps if Janis Joplin had stayed alive and done more stuff, I would have gotten a lot more into her music. But I didn't. I think that it's because by the time I started getting into this stuff, it was already in the 80s. So they've been gone for a decade or more by that point. And the music, well, still very good, was a little bit, in my way of thinking, a little bit dated. So, I even the Beatles music I thought of being a bit dated when I was a young person. I like it quite a bit now, but back then, I wanted the stuff that was coming out at the same time as that I was living in. I wanted that, what I call modern stuff, although now you can kind of think that's dated as well. Anyways, this is a woman who had, in my way of feeling, was very underrated, and people don't talk enough about her vocal abilities. I think there's too much talk about whether she was good looking or not good looking, because if you were a female singer in that time period, or even in a lot of this time period too, maybe not as much, but a lot of it depended on your looks, right? That's why so many people liked Ann Wilson, because not only could she sing like no tomorrow, but she was a good looking woman as well. Well, I don't know that Janis Joplin really was that, but I never think of Janis Joplin as about her looks. I just know that she has an amazingly incredible voice. Nobody sounds like her, I don't think. And as soon as you hear a song on the radio, you can know right away it's Janis Joplin if you've heard her at all before. Just such a distinguishing voice. So, like I said, it's sad that the two of them had to go by drug addiction. They're part of the 27 crowd, and we've already talked about Brian Jones. So there's your first three of the ones I'm doing. So here we have it, an episode that I have quite a bit of influence, quite a bit of feeling about, because I knew both musicians and listened to them quite a bit, especially Hendrix. So if you've got anything to say about Hendrix or Joplin, please make comments below. If there's stuff that I maybe missed that you think was important to talk about, that by all means put it down there. So if you like the video, then like and subscribe below, and let me know what other things you might want to see me do in the future. And so there you go. There you have it. The end of episode 7 of great rock musicians who thrilled us but have since passed on. And I hope to see you soon. So from Prog Monster, you have a good evening, and we'll see you.